Excellent. Mike Fowler, you want to take it away? You want me to handle introductions?
Oh, I was making sure I was unmuted. The only takeaway I want to do is to introduce Danette Abbott-Wicker, who is, besides a PDA person, she's also on the PDA-CA Steering Commission, and she put together this meeting along with Dorothy Reich. And from here on out, it's all in Danette's hands. So Thank you, Danette.
Thank you so much, Mike. Just wanted to start out with thank you for being here. And obviously you're all interested and concerned about the climate crisis. That's why we're here today, to learn a little bit more about legislation that we're working on. And we have some really great stories from RL, who just came back from DC. She has some updates on legislation. And then we're also going to be talking to Senator Henry Stern. We're not sure about his timing right now, so we'll go ahead and interrupt and go right to him if we need to when he hops on. Also, Harvey Sluggo Wasserman, who has been fighting nukes since 1973, especially Diablo Canyon, which unfortunately just got approved for millions more dollars to keep it running, which is not good news. We'll be talking a little bit about that. And we are going to go ahead and start out with, and then Jose Trinidad Casteneda, who's just joining, is a fabulous local activist on the scene here. He's also running for city council. We need more people on the local level that are not climate climate crisis deniers, but people that want to work towards getting sustainable cities on board as well too. So we're going to go ahead and start the show with a few people that we have on. We're going to go ahead and start with Jose Trinidad Casteneda. If you are ready to roll, we are ready to hear what you have to say today. Are you here? There he is. I'm going to ask him to unmute. Oh, there you go. All right. Hi, Jose. Nice to see you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm Jose Trinidad Casteneda. I am on too many things to count now, but just a quick intro. I've been in the environmental movement for I'm not going to count years. So I'm currently the chair of the Orange County Power Authority Community Advisory Committee, former co-chair for Sierra Club Angeles Chapter Political Committee, and I still continue on a number of environmental issues. But today I'm going to focus on how we can eliminate emissions from various sectors and how we can work towards solutions. So just broad overview, this past week, we've had some of the most disastrous impacts to our climate, to our health, to our state. And that was really evident here in my own neighborhood, where my neighbors didn't have air conditioning, I did not have to suffer as much. And one of my neighbors actually called because I am running for city council here in Buena Park. She found my campaign card, called me and asked for help because her family had passed out from the heat and she didn't know what to do. And so I take my air conditioning unit immediately over, try to help what I can, but that is what is happening today. And you can only imagine what it'll be like when heat waves become a more dominant climate norm. So how do we solve that? Well, we just stop ourselves from going too far down the road with the 2 degrees centigrade increases in global average temperature and start local. So everyone knows they have a city council. Here, I'm preaching to the choir. And I really want to urge a couple of high-level solutions. If you don't live in an area that has already implemented community choice energy is the fastest way to get us to 100% safe, clean, renewable energy. In fact, Orange County Power Authority started right off the bat with 3 of its 4 cities at 100% renewable energy for its default. And so making it one of the cleanest. So now, what happens next? Well, using the funding that you get, that you would normally otherwise pay to your utility, such as SoCal Edison or PG&E, some of that money will come back to you in the form of programs. And so community choice energy accelerates our transition to zero carbon because we can use our own money back in our communities in the forms of whatever it is that we feel is necessary according to the community. For example, serving on the community choice, on the Orange County Power Authority Community Advisory Committee, we are now at a point where we're going to develop one of our first in-house programs. And we're taking public input from all of our residents and businesses. But I really think that emissions from transportation, especially vehicle miles traveled from trips under 2 miles. So a quick trip to the grocery store, or when you want to get a haircut, picking up food or clothes from the dry cleaners, all that stuff really are smaller tasks that can be done with an electric bike or electric scooter, depending on your ability and depending on the bike infrastructure in your city. So what are we going to do? We're going to have public input for our first program, and I'm hoping that we can get enough support for us to have an electric bike subsidy, similar to what has been previously done in another CCA, only this time have an equity component so that if your income is below a certain threshold, you would qualify for a subsidy that could pay for the full costs of an e-bike, that hopefully you now have a choice between your e-bike or not having any transportation at all, or if you have a car, then definitely choosing an e-bike for a quick trip to the grocery store, just anything below 2 miles, so we can get rid of the emissions from all those small, short trips within our city. So that's just one example of how you can use a CCA and be heavily involved with it to the point where you start developing these programs. This was not an easy task to develop OCPA. It was 4 years of advocacy, then 2 years of implementation to get to where we are today. So this is part of that structural change, shifting away from private investor-owned utilities towards democratic and public control of our energy system. And so I'm going to pause for just a second. Danette, do we have questions before or during or after?
I was going to actually, we can do it either way. If anyone has a question, a really quick question, we can do them now, or you can hold it till later. You can also drop in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and gathering questions if you have it, whichever way you want to work it. If anyone has a question right now, go ahead and raise your electronic hand. And
awesome.
Okay. Jeffrey, Jeffrey,
we'll take
ahead.
2 questions and then we'll go back to some more solutions.
Sounds good. Jeffrey, go ahead.
California candidate, correct?
He is running for city council in Buena Park, correct?
Yeah. So what's your plan to get Diablo? What would your plan be to get Diablo Canyon shut down?
Diablo Canyon, I really look to the leadership of those at the front lines of that campaign. I think Food and Water Action. Oh gosh, I'm probably.
Yeah, Food and Water Watch. Yeah, I think they're.
Food and Water Watch definitely is one of the ones that I follow for updates. I get their newsletter subscription straight to my inbox, so I can make sure I'm following those calls to action, because it's really important that we make our voices heard about eliminating natural gas storage, because it's not natural, it's dirty. And I hope that answers your question. And if you have more, definitely feel free to add them in the chat. Going to Justin.
Yeah, going to Justin. Go ahead, Justin.
Hello, Jose. Thank you for your boldness and willing to put yourself on the line for the people of your city and to advocate for their well-being. So I'm wondering if in your area you've heard of Denny Zane of MoveLA.org. He's also working on similar goals as you are. including the Proposition 30 that's going to be going on the ballot statewide. But in addition to all that information, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on things like work from home. Say near some of my relatives in San Francisco, they converted the 100 Van Ness building from offices to residences, and people largely work from home there. So that means they don't have to travel for that work commute.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate the recommendations, and I'll definitely be following up on them. So to answer your point, collaboration and coalition building is how we win. So as Democrats, we know that policy does not change without working together across differences. And that's what got us Orange County Power Authority, and that's what will get us to zero carbon. So happy to receive all your recommendations and connections. When it comes to just reminding me again, the second part of your question, it was there was a two-part in there. Is Justin able to speak yet? Raise his hand.
Sorry about that. I had to get permission to unmute, but yeah, so the work from home converting office buildings.
I think that's a great solution if we can change our transportation and traffic behavior, if we can change those patterns so that we eliminate traffic congestion, improve everyone's quality of life by giving them options to work from home if their work type allows. That is something that I would love to see that can tackle the housing crisis, just the emissions, but it's not always going to be like that for every city, because if you are in a coastal city, like most of us, there is a chance that commercial units are rising in price as well. And as a person running for a city council, as a candidate, you have to balance like the need for your sales tax revenue from your local businesses for your city's general fund with, the number of commercial units that are available at affordable market rate prices for businesses to, then compete for that space. And we know that big box retail is going out of business. That's why we have all these dilapidating malls being turned into housing or mixed use projects. And that's great. But again, project by project or just as a broad application across the city, we don't know if turning all the empty commercial office units into residential is appropriate, because each building is different, and you can't turn a parking garage into housing. That's just not the way it's designed or built. So I assume that would be similar for a commercial office building. And thank you for your question. So just going to touch a little bit more on one more solution, because I know we have some more hands, and Q&A always is the best part when we engage and learn from each other. But at the local level, another thing that we can do is really push for a bold, enforceable climate action plan in which staff are required to bring updates and properly implement things according to the various timelines that have been approved by the city. And I bring this up because I am not a big fan of having a plan that sits on a shelf and collects dust. I am much more of a doer and wanting to get things through. But here's the benefit to having a bold climate action plan. Other cities will follow your lead. And what I mean by that is, back in 2015, San Diego passed a bold climate action plan, and it became a de facto model across the nation. And then as other large cities follow suit, that showed how much more momentum there was going to be over the long run in making sure we make progress. For example, some of us may be near LA, so we may have heard that the county has an LA County Sustainability Master Plan, that the city has a climate action plan, and every agency in between has their own plans. But what is happening with those plans? Who's following up with them? And what projects are being implemented according to what timelines? That is something that we should have our eye on, because not having a city staff that is accountable to its people and the public is one of the most dangerous things that we can see coming out of cities passing anything related to the environment. For example, here in Orange County, there's a city called Irvine. And what we know is that the city council has unanimously voted on bold climate action, bold policies over and over again. And yet it's been years since some of those votes, and it's been months without updates. And from what I understand, the backlog, the resistance has been internal within the city. And so what I mean by that, and to just be clear, not pointing out anyone in particular, is just there is no will on the part of the people actually implementing these policies to report on their updates, to make progress on these promises. So that's what I mean by a bold, enforceable climate action plan, because a plan with no teeth, no penalties, that's gonna keep us exactly where we're at when it's 2030, and we're locking ourselves into a 2 degrees centigrade increase in global average temperature, or worse. So those are two big chunks of what I wanted to share as solutions. I'm sure some of you have already heard about them, but smaller ones, smaller bites and lower hanging fruit, you can actually go on my website, and I'll drop it in the chat below, but it's Trinidad.Casteneda.com and /issues. There I'll be uploading more updates on various climate solutions that I feel can be done at any city of any size. And
Great.
I will turn it back to the net if we have time for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. That's awesome. Mike Fowler, you want to go ahead?
Yes, in fact, I do. Jose, you earlier mentioned CCAs, and I'm in San Diego County, where we have a lot of them, but I've heard, rumors isn't really the best word for it. I've heard that the CPUC is considering a rule or an ordinance or whatever it is they have the authority to do that would not allow the CCAs to charge less than the local investor-owned utilities. First of all, is that really in the pipe? And if it is there anything we as citizens and ratepayers can do to stop it?
Thank you, Mike. This is a great question. And San Diego is definitely a hub for all things solar and clean energy, well, compared to everywhere else. So I want to have a quick disclaimer. Just the following information that I'm going to share on the CPUC, I would prefer if folks vetted on their downtime or their independent time off the Zoom. But from what I understand, there's usually a push from investor-owned utilities in Sacramento to have some of the Senate Energy Committee or Assembly Energy Committee members introduce bills that do make it more difficult for CCAs to compete with the IOUs. And so there was an effort, but that effort was quickly I don't want to say killed, but that effort to introduce a bill that would have made it difficult for CCAs was stopped because we have good relationships with our folks in Senate Energy and Assembly Energy committees. And that's what I would encourage you all to start developing if you don't have it already, that you pay attention to which legislators are being appointed to the energy committees. That's where the rule or the authority for the CPUC to establish these rules comes from. And they also have their own rulemaking process, but I think Igor is going to be on to talk a little bit more about that.
Great,
So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jose. Robin, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Could you please tell me what a community choice aggregate is?
Yeah, community choice aggregation is a program of a not-for-profit, usually in the form of a joint powers authority. So an agreement between multiple cities or jurisdictions that are purchasing power on behalf of their constituents. And I mentioned that it's not for profit because it truly is reinvesting back in our communities. The bills that you pay towards your IOU, so SoCal Edison, PG&E, et cetera, they a part of that line item on your bill is for energy source. So where you get your energy from. And we know that emissions in California come from three big sources: where you produce the energy or how you produce it, transportation, and buildings, and housing, industrial, commercial, et cetera. So we need to eliminate emissions from all three. And the easiest and fastest is eliminating carbon emissions from our energy sources. And the way to do that faster than what our IOUs can currently provide or have planned for is by establishing a community choice aggregation program. It's stronger when we work together. So having cities work together, partnering to pool their funds, increase the size of their customer service area, the city jurisdictions, that's going to be how you can rapidly accelerate the delivering of cleaner energy to more homes and businesses. And again, it's not for profit, so any extra revenue comes back in the form of programs that you can have a voice on, because you directly elect your council members that serve on these boards. So I hope that answers your question, and you can find out more on cal-cca.org. It is the statewide CCA source for anything that you need: jobs, updates, news, etc.
Thank you so much, Jose. That was amazing. And I just want to make a really quick comment too. Actually, it might be a question for you and the whole panel. How would publicly owned utilities change the whole dynamic? I think we should push towards that. I don't know what the ground roots efforts are right now with that, but I know that Anaheim, our neighboring city to Orange, owns their utilities, and I think it's been very successful for them. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities between municipal owned utilities, so MOU, CCAs, and compared to IOUs, which have been responsible for some of the wildfires that have destroyed so many homes and taken so many lives. So I always gotta point out that this is, there's always marketing going out there, but it's, when people's lives are lost, then we need to hold these IOUs to account. And public and democratic control of our energy doesn't come without risk. I think there's the benefit of having a voice, having a seat at the table, and a direct connection to your council member that serves on the board of your municipal owned utility. Oh, and sorry, for Robin, and IOUs are investor owned utilities. That's SCE, PG&E, and SDG&E. But Anaheim Public Utility, or APU, they are an example of what happens when you have a utility that is not paid attention to or held accountable. They have legacy contracts with coal-fired plants in Utah. So they get some of their energy, actually 13-something%. I had to check the numbers, so don't hold me to that. But they get some of their energy from coal-fired plants in Utah. And those contracts don't expire until later this decade. So they will continue purchasing coal until that coal plant shuts down. I'm not sure what the city has done to accelerate a transition away from those contracts, but legacy contracts like that for older public utilities presents a risk. And if we have a new public utility, then hopefully they purchase all clean energy. Then we can build stronger relationships and collaborate with all different Democrats, right? From our labor brothers and sisters to everyone in between, environmental and labor. So With that, I think I'll end here. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope this has been helpful, and feel free to follow me on social media at Jose T. Casteneda 3.
Thank you so much, Jose. And I did want to point out, all politics are local. And that's why we love that you're running for city council, because that's where the change starts. On city councils, on Board of Education, and school boards. It all starts there. So great. Thank you so much. Next up, we have R.L. Miller, and she's going to tell us how her trip to DC was. Take it away, R.L.
Hey, folks. So for people who don't already know me, I'm R.L. Miller. I am a DNC elected representative. I was chair of the state Democratic Party's environmental caucus from 2013 to 2021, where I've since been succeeded by the very able and competent Igor Tregub, who you'll be also hearing from. I also run an outside group by the name of Climate Hawks Vote. We try to build political power for the climate movement, which means in plain English, so we try to elect people who are going to be good on climate in Congress. All of which gives me a pretty good bird's eye view of the federal legislation that has happened and is happening. And let me fill you in on the very short version. The Inflation Reduction Act, pretty good. The secret mansion side deal coming down the pike, really bad. We got to all work together to stop it. And folks, please excuse me for the lousy lighting. I am still in Washington, D.C. I've been invited to the White House because on Tuesday, they're going to be having some sort of Inflation Reduction Act party. They've already done a bill signing they've already done a bill signing event. Now there's a bill signing party. So it's been an interesting few days in a capital that is mostly devoted to the memories of dead white men. You cannot turn around without seeing statues of dead white men here, there, and everywhere. And one of the main worries that I have about Manchin's side deal, well, let me back up a little bit. I assume everybody here is generally familiar with the Inflation Reduction Act. This is the bill formerly known as Build Back Better, and it's got two major parts to it. First is some negotiation on drug prices. The prescription drug reform that they've been trying to get for years and years and years, it's being capped at $2,000 a year for seniors, which honestly is a BFD. The second part of it is a lot of spending on clean energy. And you guys all know very generally that Joe Manchin represents the state of West Virginia, and he did his best to stick up for fossil fuels. And there's a lot of compromises in the bill. Among other things, the bill gives more money to nuclear power. The bill gives a lot of money to things called carbon capture and storage, which I'm not going to go into in too much detail. Suffice to say that it's basically a way of keep on drilling, keep on spilling, but attach a magic pill to the top of the smokestack so that the emissions are magically captured and stored underground. And if you believe that works, I too would like to find a diet that I would like to find a magic pill that would let me be rich, thin, and beautiful and eating chocolate cake every day forever. But real life doesn't work that way. Having said all that, one of the worst things, and don't get me wrong, the bill has a lot of good things. We're going to be spending a lot of money on clean energy in all sorts of places, in all sorts of ways. You're going to get a $4,000 credit if you buy a used electric vehicle that costs $25,000 or less, which right now sounds pretty prohibitive. There are Chevy Bolts that you can get for that. But as electric cars become more and more prevalent, that's going to become more and more of a big deal. They're already announcing factories, American clean energy manufacturing jobs every place from Georgia to Kansas to West Virginia. Yes, West Virginia is getting, yes, Joe Manchin stuck up for his peeps there. Everywhere across the United States, and hopefully there'll be union jobs. And this is honestly what we want to do. But bill passed through reconciliation, which means that it was budget related. And so all we needed was 51 votes. We got it through the Senate on a 51 to 50 vote. Vice President Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote again. And she, and not a single Republican voted for this world-changing bill. Separately, Manchin cuts a deal with Senate Majority Leader Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for a side deal that does require 60 votes to get through the Senate. It's not even remotely related to budgets. What's in the side deal? We don't know exactly, but what we do know is that and Danette has already put a link into the chat, is that it was shown to the American Petroleum Institute. They have a leaked copy of the draft. It was not shown to the solar energy industry or to the wind energy industry because Manchin doesn't care what they have to say. He only cares about the Petroleum Institute. And what this bill is supposed to do is speed up the pipeline permitting process. Now, some people are going to try to tell you that this bill is also going to speed up the process for approving renewable energy. So if you build a solar energy farm in Wyoming and you need to get it to California and the people in Utah are squawking about it, this bill would, at least in theory, speed it up. I have news for you. This is really groundbreaking, shocking news. I hope you guys are all sitting down. Solar energy is not conveyed through pipelines. I know. Wind energy is not conveyed through pipelines. This is a pipeline permitting bill. And that's why the American Petroleum Institute is so incredibly interested in it. Well, here's what we know about the bill. First off, we don't know exactly what's in it because they are still working out the details. Secondly, they know that this is a problem because number one, 650 green groups, including mine, Climate Hawks Vote, and many, many, many others have all signed on to a letter in opposition to it. Third, we know that it's a problem. And so what they're going to do is try to jam it down our throats. Yeah. Sorry, just had to do the sound effect. Specifically, by September 30th, the government needs to pass what's called a continuing resolution or the government runs out of money. Democrats don't want to be seen as, if the government doesn't pass this bill, the government shuts down. Democrats right now, they're pretty well on a roll. They want to say that, hey, we're the party that gets stuff done. We deserve to be reelected in November, those minor details called elections. And so they want to not shut down the government. And so the idea is that we attach this horrible, sucky pipeline bill to the back of a must-pass bill. And Democrats all hold their nose and vote for it. Okay, I don't like the side part, but I don't want to shut down the government either. So that's their plan. That's leadership's plan. House Democrats are rebelling against that. On Friday, 72 House Democrats, led by Raul Grijalva, 72 House Democrats is 1/3 of the Democratic caucus, submitted a letter in opposition to the side deal. What they want and what we want is a clean vote, up or down, on the pipeline bill, separate from the bill to fund the government and avoid shutting down the government. I just can't emphasize enough how bad this is. It has provisions the leaked draft has provisions to approve 25 different fossil fuel projects. It would gut the National Environmental Protection Act and the Clean Water Act, which is our basic hardcore bedrock environmental protection bills, all in the interest of enabling fossil fuel companies to keep on drilling and keep on spilling. So here's where I come in. I wrote I'm a DNC member, so I submitted a resolution, and the resolution says, in a nutshell, that the Inflation Reduction Act is awesome, and the President Biden's climate plan and platform are awesome, and the President Biden generally is awesome, and everything is awesome except for this side bill, and we should simply kill that, and that bill should be separated out from any continuing resolution and instead gets its own vote. The idea being that, hey, let's just vote on it. Let's not try to shove it down people's throats. Let's just have an honest debate on whether this is actually a good idea. Having said that, I submitted that resolution. It was number 16 in the DNC's packet of resolutions. What the DNC did was Chair Jamie Harrison wrote a resolution in conjunction with the White House that had a lot of my stuff in it. It basically said the Inflation Reduction Act is awesome, yay, President Biden, but omitted all the stuff about me and my, let's kill the side deal with fire. And so the DNC took it up. They first passed the Inflation Reduction Act, Jamie Harrison resolution, and then the Resolutions Committee chair just sort of announces to everybody that this bill, this number 16 resolution authored by R.L. Miller, has a great sounding title, but we do not recommend a vote on it. And I spoke for about 2 minutes. I said, look, guys, I'm coming from California where we are on fire. We are burning up here. You guys have water in your rivers. What's water? This weird stuff called water fell from the sky while I was there. It was like freaky. Water doesn't fall from the sky anymore, does it? Anyways, so I spoke. Jane Klebb, who's the Nebraska State Democratic Party chair and on the board of Our Revolution, is totally awesome. She also spoke. And then they just all sort of looked at each other and said, I don't see any motion to vote. I don't see any motion to vote. Next. And they killed it. And that was the end of that. I thought about making a resolution, picking a floor fight on Saturday morning. The DNC staffers sent around a vicious text saying, I hear that a small group of DNC members intends to disrupt things and embarrass the president when we're all gearing up for midterms. You support the president, don't you? Yeah. So that was sort of the end of our little rebellion. So I am now a small group of DNC disruptive troublemakers. I've been branded that for life, and I will wear that with pride. Now I'm going to try to talk to Biden if I have a chance to at the White House, but there's going to be 1,000 people there, so I probably won't. And instead, I'm just going to post some cool pictures. And you guys can follow me on Twitter, and in a second, I will drop a link into chat regarding my Twitter handle. But that's not as important as what I want you to do now. Okay, I've got 2 asks for you. Every single PDA person. Number 1 is we've got a petitions floating around. When I last looked at it, we had just under 59,000 signatures on it. I want to see 60,000 signatures. I want to see it by the end of tonight. Okay, it's only 4:30 on the West Coast. You guys have lots of time to go, tweet it out and post on Facebook and blast it out on your email blasts. So please go ahead and get this link out to everybody. I want to see 60,000 signatures on the petition tonight and 100,000 by the end of this week. Generally, make some noise about the dirty deal, #dirty deal. Manchin's side deal, if you're being polite to people, #dirty deal if you're on Twitter and not really being in the mood to be polite. Second, the sign-on letter that I mentioned that has 72 Democrats on it. We did a really good job of going beyond the usual progressive caucus suspects, Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna, and all that. Of course, they signed on to it because they're awesome. But we also did a good job of getting to members of the Congressional Black Caucus and members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, because they represent districts that are being hit hard by this. You want to know how messed up things are? Don't sit here in California. Unless you're down in Wilmington, go to Texas, go to the front lines and find out what is happening in Texas. But that's no excuse for House Democrats like Ted Lieu, who's normally a very progressive guy, represents West LA. He hasn't signed on to that letter. Julia Brownlee, my representative in Ventura County, hasn't signed on to the letter. Guess what? I'm staying about 1.2 miles away from Capitol Hill, and she's going to be getting a visit from me tomorrow. Guys, don't just share this petition on Twitter and on Facebook. Also, go to your members of Congress if you don't see them on the list of 72 House Democrats. I'm going to give you guys a little sneak preview. Okay, please don't put this out on Twitter yet. Okay, I know we're being recording, but yeah, okay, it's going to come out soon. What's going to happen is that there's going to be some polling coming out this week, because I asked people to do polling. And I said, I don't know what the polling is going to say, but I'm willing to bet two things. Number one, nobody has heard of Manchin's dirty deal. Most Democrats have not heard of Manchin's dirty deal. And number two, if they hear about it, they ain't going to like it. So Democrats in Congress need to hear from everyone that this is not a good idea. It's incredibly unpopular. It's going to hurt them. It's going to depress Democratic turnout if it goes through. So, like I say, post this on Twitter. I'd love to get a tweet out from PDA once I'm done. I'm going to drop links in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm really good at multitasking, but I cannot talk and type at the same time. So I'm going to get all this done while the next person is talking. And I am going to shut up for a second, take a few questions, and try to catch my breath. But I'm here to tell you guys, again, the short answer, in case you weren't paying any attention, is number one, Inflation Reduction Act is pretty good. Not perfect, pretty good. Number two, attached to it is a horrible, sucky side deal that leadership wants to shove down the throats of House Democrats. The plan is, by the way, in case you're wondering, Jared Huffman, representing Marin County, has the plan. They attach the bad, sucky bill to the top of the CR. Well, continuing resolution. Well, Jared Huffman pulls out a clean CR in his back pocket and says, aha, but you can pass the clean CR without the sucky bill and without shutting down the government and still win the midterms. Again, the general plan is let's all make some noise. We haven't yet seen the entire text of the dirty deal. Keep on making noise, yell at your members of Congress. And I will do my best to drop a link into the chat regarding the Democrats who have not signed. And I will try to, while other people are talking, I'll try to highlight the ones from California who really need to hear from PDA. Now, I do think that we still need to win our fall races. I do think that we have a good chance, a medium chance of holding the House if we all work our butts off. So everybody, please do show up for your Democrats. Please do get the vote out. Please do everything that you're doing to be awesome PDA Democrats. But for right now, it's shut down Manchin's sucky side bill, not the government, by September 30th. Thank you all.
Thank you, RL. That was amazing. I just wanted to add to that. yes, get involved, because we are at the brink of losing not only our democracy, but the global climate crisis is getting worse by the day. You know, RL knows this. Some scientists are actually saying we're at 1.3 Celsius global increase. So that's not good news. We know that global crop failures start hitting at 1.5. I don't know about you guys, but I like food and I like to eat, and that you kind of need that to survive. And also we need to keep our water available and clean too. I don't know if you saw the news, is it Jackson, Mississippi? Literally black water coming out of their taps. This is not acceptable. I know that Jeffrey has a question. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I know you guys said some. I know you guys said about losing our democracy, correct? I've been working on something that can actually help save our democracy. It's called, actually, and I'm working it with Justin LeBlanc, who's also in the chat. It's called Democracide, or otherwise known as Crimes Against Democracy. And I'm trying to get that off the ground with a nonprofit organization called Stop Democracide International, because the overall goal is to get it.
Jeffrey, go ahead and drop that link in the chat. We do need to move on to the next person that needs to ask a question. Thank you.
All right, I'll just put the Facebook link because that doesn't have a website yet.
Thank you.
Great. I'll take a look at it.
Laura?
Hey, RL, so good to hear you always. Thank you for your badassery. So I was on the Gulf South Coalition call, and there's a hearing tomorrow. Part of it is allowing new oil drilling in the South, which of course has horrified everyone who's have people dying and sick from just the leftover tragedies from the BP disaster. So there's a way to provide public testimony against that part of the deal and connect it to the Manchin thing. I put it in the chat.
Great, thank you so much. Justin.
Hello, RL. Thank you so much for your tireless efforts. It takes a whole village. It takes all of us to care for our environment, and we're very proud of what you do. I was wondering how much you know about the Inflation Reduction Act's subsidies in terms of the tax credits for renewables. My understanding is that it is now nearly limitless. Anybody with a tax liability can purchase credits from anybody who purchases renewable energy. And I think, you know, this could be a complete game changer in terms of how we invest in ourselves as a country. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, especially in people who naturally have to pay for a lot of their own equipment, such as agriculture.
I haven't focused that much on the details of the tax credits for industry yet. I know that generally the people on the clean energy side of the climate coalition are just over the moon ecstatic. The people representing the frontline groups are pretty cranky. And so there's a huge spectrum of reactions, which is why I didn't put out a great big congratulatory statement on Twitter. Some of my friends were just furious and heartsick that it passed. I don't have all the details. I'm going to try to find a link for you while we're talking, but most of the stuff that I've seen so far has focused on work on how this affects individuals, not so much corporations or other or nonprofits or other entities. So I'll do my best to try to find an answer for you, though.
Great, thank you. Dorothy, you're up.
Hey, RL, do you have any ideas on the water situation? Is there anybody working on crafting legislation to prevent the farmers from using regular irrigation instead of drip irrigation and growing almonds and alfalfa and rice and depriving people of water to live?
You know, I spent 3 days on the bank of the Potomac River, and I kept on telling everybody who was from the East Coast that I am going to stick a really big straw in that water and send it 2,500 miles over. And they didn't quite believe me. I mean, they sort of laughed and yeah, maybe I will. We don't have any easy answers. And I don't think people on the East Coast understand this. But California provides anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of the nation's food. And right now I saw something to the effect that the rice fields north of Sacramento, you know, the areas north of Sacramento that are always flooded over, right north of Sacramento, that stuff is gone. And that means higher rice prices for everybody, not just California, but the world. Because if you can't grow rice in California, it's going to be imported from somewhere else. And that means more shipping costs and et cetera, et cetera. Right now, California rice, what's that brand I always see in the supermarkets? Cal rice, something logical like that. That's like good quality rice if you're not like a rice snob. Anyways, but it's not just that. It's almonds. It's it's fresh lettuce. And at some point, we are going to need to think hard about why we are growing food to be shipped overseas, and why we are growing food that is only used as food for animals. So I'm speaking specifically about alfalfa. We do grow a lot of alfalfa. A lot of it goes overseas, and a lot of it goes to feed beef, goes to feed cows. So I know I always see comments, every climate chat I've ever in always has somebody urging people to go vegan. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, everybody, we have bent the climate curve a little bit simply by shifting over from beef to chicken. We should keep on shifting it.
Yes.
Lots more work to be done, and lots more laws that need to be considered. But yeah, I don't think people on the East Coast understand just how bad it is in California.
Yeah, absolutely, RL.
I
Oh my gosh.
know we've got other speakers. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, RL, I did want to mention too, I'm glad you mentioned that. It is very important to get off of beef as much as possible. Even eliminating 1 or 2 meals a week helps tremendously, because remember, that's why they are destroying the Amazon forest currently, is for land usage for cattle and for soy. We are passing a tipping point down there. I read a report the other day that 20% of it is irrevocably lost. At this point, it's starting to savannanize. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's switching to a totally different climate zone, which means it's getting more like a desert at this point. So because there are no plants, no trees to sustain the soil anymore. So that frightens me. So please try to do your best. I would love to say go vegan totally. It's very hard. I'm still trying to do it 100%. I'm mostly vegetarian, but it does help, even eliminating 1 meat meal a year, or I'm a week. All right, great. Thank you so much, RL. That was amazing. Next up, we have Harvey Sluggo Wasserman. He's going to talk about no nukes. And Harvey, come on up.
All right, I'll start with the good news. They've apparently shut the last reactor at Zaporizhzhia in Ukraine. It's still a horrifying, very dangerous situation, but at least the reactors are all down there. They're reliant on grid-based power to keep the reactors cool. And I think the Ukrainians have also retaken the Chernobyl site, which is incredibly dangerous as well. But at least there's some good news there. And now the bad news, of course, is we face a serious life and death struggle here with Diablo Canyon. Today also, we heard that they're trying to reopen the Palisades reactor in Michigan, which was shut. Incredibly dangerous. But the first order of business in California is to stop the PUC from killing rooftop solar. It's one of the great ironies here, are sicknesses or psychoses that on the one hand are telling us we need the power from Diablo Canyon, which is completely insane, and they want to tax everybody in California to pay for Diablo, even if you're not, if you get no power whatsoever from Diablo. They want everybody in the state to pay for Diablo. And there's precedent for that. They did it in New York. Cuomo forced a $7.5 billion subsidy for 4 reactors in New York. And they're charging people on Long Island for the 4 reactors in New York, all of which are upstate. So it's completely insane. And the life extension for Diablo is not a done deal. The legislature passed it, but we will tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Anybody should join us. Write me and join I'm putting my email in the chat. Write me directly. I'll send you a PDF of my history book, and I'll send you the link to tomorrow's Zoom, the Grassroots Emergency Election Protection. Danette, Dorothy, you guys are mainstays, and we need you on this. We're going to strategize both how to kill Diablo, which is still doable. There are many, many off-ramps in the next couple of years to stopping Diablo. State laws, federal laws, environmental laws, economics, the lawsuits will proliferate. And we must not accept the idea that this is a done deal at Diablo Canyon, because it's not. And the first question we want to ask is, where are the evacuation plans for Los Angeles and the Bay Area when the San Andreas, or one of the dozen earthquake faults underneath Diablo, shakes it to the ground and a radioactive cloud pours out? Earlier in the chat, there's a 1-minute video from Ace Hoffman, which is really cool, illustrating what can happen at Diablo. I just put that in the chat as well. It's worth looking at and sending around. Our first order of business, however, is to prevent the CPUC from killing rooftop solar in California. You know, on the one hand, they want to keep Diablo open. On the other hand, they want to tax the most reliable, the cleanest, the biggest job producing technology in the whole energy sector everywhere, including California, which is rooftop solar. There are more than 1.2 million rooftop solar installations in California alone. There are 1,500 people working at Diablo and 70,000 working in wind and solar in California. So this is a last gasp for the private utilities in California. The private utilities hate rooftop solar, because if everybody can have solar panels on their rooftop, we don't need the private utilities. And I got one thing is, people have to watch out for this Diablo bill, because it will kill the community choice aggregation. If they force the CCAs to pay for Diablo, it will kill the CCAs. And I'm sure that's one of the back stories of the Diablo legislation. So people have to look at that very closely. Now, as early as September 15th, which is Thursday, the CPUC may, and we can't even discern their agenda. They have a hidden agenda, but they may actually take up and pass the bill to put heavy taxes on rooftop solar installations and to kill the buyback or the net metering plans. This is pure subversion and a total attack on rooftop solar, which we have to stop. And I hope Senator Stern, I heard Senator Stern's speech, I hope the others who voted for this Diablo bailout will find their center here and stop this killing of rooftop solar. And I got to tell you, there was a bill to do this in Florida, and basically the same attack on rooftop solar, and it was actually vetoed by Ron DeSantis. So we have a situation where Ron DeSantis is more green than Gavin Newsom on rooftop solar. Rooftop solar produces way more power in California than Diablo does. And it is absolutely essential to solving the climate crisis. Just for the record, rooftops are the #1 place where solar panels should be. They talk about deserts and all that stuff. We do not need, there is more than enough square footage in the United States to host rooftop solar to power the whole United States, and certainly California. The second place that solar panels need to go is on the aqueduct and on the reservoirs. Floating rooftop solar panels, which have proliferated in China, are extremely efficient. It's counterintuitive, but photovoltaics work better when they're cooler. That's why Colorado is perfect for solar, because you got 300 days of sun and you also have cold winters, or we're used to. So, but in addition to the rooftops in California, we need solar panels on the aqueduct to begin with, and on what's left of the reservoirs. The aqueduct is perfect because it goes straight down. You don't need to build power lines. You just run a cable all the way down the aqueduct. You have the panels on there. This is very practical, by the way. It sounds a little off the wall, but it's absolutely happening in China and elsewhere. And of course, it cuts the evaporation by 50%, which is huge. So these are the only two places where we need solar panels: rooftops and then the aqueducts and the reservoirs. And the CPUC is poised to kill it. These are very substantial taxes, and they want to make them retroactive. In other words, my son-in-law and daughter around the corner from me in LA, they have solar panels on the rooftop. They put them in on the presumption of a certain financial deal. The CPUC now wants to tax those, starting immediately, even though that wasn't part of the original deal. This is an absolute backstab of the solar industry in California and of our ability to survive, to make climate change. So everybody needs to focus on this. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific time on our regular GREE Zoom, that's the Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition, we will talk about this for a full hour and maybe more. So please put this on your agenda. Everybody's got to focus on the CPUC. It could happen this week. It has got to be stopped, and nobody should be giving up on Diablo Canyon, because we have many, many ways to stop it from being extended, and we have to do all those things as soon as possible. So there are coalitions, of course, and we all need to be part of one of them. So I'll stop with that. So let's just pray for Zaporizhia and for Chernobyl, both of which are in very, very serious danger. And you got to remember, but for the grace of God, Diablo Canyon has not been shaken to the ground, but it could happen at any moment. The earthquake fault that destroyed Fukushima was twice as far from Fukushima, 90 miles, as the San Andreas is from Diablo Canyon, which is 45 miles. So we are living on borrowed time, and we cannot let this go forward. So stop Diablo and save rooftop solar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Slogo. That was amazing. Yes, I wanted to mention that even the Chernobyl meltdown, which happened in '86, they're still having health repercussions from that. And that was almost 40 years ago. So we don't want that to happen. It's a ticking time bomb. So please, everyone, be aware of what's going on with that. And please, let's fight that together. I did put a link in the chat. California is going to be covering our aqueducts with solar panels to cut evaporation and generate electricity. They did a study, they lost billions of gallons a year to evaporation alone. So that's going to be a great start. Jeffrey, you had a quick question?
Yeah, Harvey, sorry I won't be able to attend tomorrow. I got an appointment to get my cyst removed.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
That was it. I just wanted to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody wants to think about the seriousness at Diablo, the dead zone around Chernobyl is 1,000 square miles.
Yep.
So superimpose 1,000 square miles anywhere downwind in California from Diablo.
Great. Yeah, it's really bad. Justin.
Hi. So Harvey, thank you so much for staying on top of this for all of us and reporting it on KGO and Progressive Radio everywhere. I wanted to ask, you had known about the number of jobs in the solar industry versus other places like Diablo. Also, I think it was something like 6 times as much power produced by rooftop solar as opposed to nuclear plants. Then also, my understanding is that ISO has been trying to stop interconnections to rooftop solar so that they can, claim that, oh, yeah, it's their fault, not the fault of our planning. So do you have any thoughts on any of those three?
Yeah, I mean, this is the death knell for the utility industry, and they know it. If rooftop solar proliferates, we don't need PG&E or SDG&E or Edison. They're out of business. This is their apocalypse. Our apocalypse is if, God forbid, that one of the earthquake faults goes off and Diablo blows up, which it can do. There's absolutely no doubt that Diablo Canyon could blow up, especially Unit 1, which is embrittled. If there's, God forbid, a meltdown at Unit 1, the pressure vessel will, if they pour in the water, the pressure vessel will shatter. You will have hydrogen, steam, and radiation, all over the universe. So this is, we're looking at two apocalypses here. The end of the utility on one hand, and they will use this tax to pay for Diablo to kill the CCAs. The CCAs are in grave danger here, and that has to be stopped. So we do not throw in the towel on Diablo. This is not a done deal. We have state and federal environmental laws, lawsuits. A deal was signed in 2016. A legally binding deal was signed. We need to take that to court.
Absolutely.
And whatever else we got.
You can't let them get away, especially it was in writing. You can't let them get away with that. We have to fight it every step of the way. Thank you so much, Sluggo. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Igor. He's going to talk about some local issues, and Igor, take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Wow, first of all, just what an amazing panel, and there are so many interesting threads that have already been mentioned. See, I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, and while I have no recollection of this, at 2 years old, I was evacuated into Moscow during the Chernobyl incident. And here we are, 35 years later. And we could have been on the brink of another nuclear disaster. So over the last 6 months, I have been focused on the related issues of saving solar in California and elsewhere, saving my homeland of Ukraine, and saving the planet, getting off of fossil fuel, which fund the Putin war machine to the tune of $258 million in oil alone, oil exports. I wanted to, based on all the comments that have already been, or questions that have been generated on solar, I'm going to switch up my presentation a little bit. I'm going to talk about the situation on the solar front, and then I will get into other important climate bills that are on the governor's desk. So you have already heard that investor-owned utilities, shockingly, want to not only kill distributed generation, including rooftop solar and storage, notwithstanding the fact that 1.5 million folks all over California have been able to take control of their own utilities bills to a renewable democratized source of energy, amounting to 12 gigawatts, which is enough to take 20 medium-size natural gas plants permanently offline. They want to do this because they are investor-owned utilities, so they have a profit motive to do that. PG&E may have declared bankruptcy, but they're doing quite well. This year alone, they paid a $51 million bonus to their CEO. And so they are relying on basically using tired and factually inaccurate talking points. That's my respectful way of putting it, if you say something, as we have read, if we read 1984, the year I was born, if you say something time and time again, even if it's a manufactured lie, it becomes the truth. So they're claiming that there is this fictional cost shift. What they're trying to say by that is that all these wealthy white people who own solar in the Bay Area are being subsidized by folks in working class and middle class communities that don't have solar. The reality is actually the opposite of that, because almost 2/3 of solar adopters over the last 6 years have in fact been working class and middle class folks. And in the top 10 counties that are adopting rooftop solar happen to also be in places like Riverside, San Bernardino, LA, and did I say Riverside? So some of the counties that also have parts of it that are red right now on the Cal EnviroScreen map, which is the map that shows communities that are most challenged by the impacts of pollution and climate change. So what is the situation right now? As you may have heard, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. Back in December 2021, the CPUC proposed, the agency that is supposed to regulate the utilities became captured by the utilities and has basically proposed a carbon copy of what the utilities asked for. That carbon copy, I'm in PG&E territory, it would impose a $57 a month solar tax. Now, because of the massive outcry that we have been able to kick up with the help of all of you and all of the different organizations represented, and definitely wanted to give a shout out to PDA as one of them. It's been absolutely crucial in the fight to save solar. They're now trying to figure out how to refashion this proposal into something that is sellable to the governor. And we're saying there is absolutely no way that we're going to accept a tax on solar. It can be $10, it can be 10 rubles. We don't care. And we are not going to look past calling it something else that is a solar tax by any other name. So if you hear of things like non-bypassable charges on self-generation, that is a tax on solar and storage. If you hear other interesting terms, it probably means that they're trying to confuse folks into submission and thinking that it's something good. So this next decision, we think, is going to come out in late September. And in October, stay tuned. Go to the Solar Rights Alliance website to get details. And I'm going to put the sign up in the chat again. And yes, I can, to the person who private chatted me, I will be happy to get you stats on low and moderate income adoption of rooftop solar. Because what is at risk is not only that, but 65,000 well-paying solar jobs. These are folks that have devoted their lives and livelihoods to invest in a career that combats climate change. And the utilities wants to take away those jobs as well. Where was I? In October, stay tuned, sign up to solarrights.org. This will have more details shortly. We are going to have a march on the Capitol. It will be, we've been able to have marches before that have turned out thousands of people, sometimes contemporaneously on the same day in both LA and the Bay Area. This one will be in Sacramento. It's gonna need to dwarf all of these. We need to show the governor that we are paying attention. We need to show the governor that if California is truly to be a leader in renewable energy, including democratized renewable energy that we the people get to own, not investor-owned utilities like PG&E, then he needs to be at least as good as not my Governor DeSantis on rooftop solar. And so stay tuned for that. We were able to, again, thanks to all of your help, defeat several anti-solar bills in the legislature this year. There is one bill that we are trying to get a veto on by the governor as well, AB 2143. But thanks to all of your support, we were able to defeat several bills that the utilities have put in. Sometimes they took good bills by folks like Assemblymember Friedman that are generally friends of solar, and they introduced poison pills that would have stopped distributed generation in its tracks, that would have stopped things like microgrids from happening, because investor-owned utilities are very powerful in Sacramento. That microgrid bill or anti-microgrid bill, by the way, we were able to stop it with no votes to spare. It needed 21 votes to pass the Senate. It got 20. Then it was like a zombie bill that kept coming up over a period of 2 days. It was brought up on reconsideration. Then it got 15 votes. So it actually went down. And then a pro-investor-owned utility senator, as his parting shot, Senator Hueso, wanted to put in something in the ledger of the state legislature. Oh yeah, and I'm going to be calling people out if they're anti-solar on this Zoom. So at that point, the presiding officer said, Hueso, you're done. Like, this is not okay. So yeah, zero margin. So thank you. We were able to also get one pro-solar bill on the governor's desk, SB 385, which will mandate that local jurisdictions, populations 5,000 and up, are required to not have massive months-long permitting delays, that they would need to automatically, instantaneously approve applications for simple solar and battery storage. Genuflecting to the John Oliver references before, he also had an issue with his solar system. Every episode, he would be like, 365 days and still no rooftop solar. This is the John Oliver bill. So together, we are going to be able to make sure that the governor signs SB 385, try to get a veto of AB 2143, the remaining anti-solar bill that, under the guise of something good, is actually going to hurt the people that it claims to help, which include union contractors and worker-owned cooperatives, as well as punish affordable housing and nonprofit developers and small businesses and farms if they had a contractor that didn't follow some very complicated rules, that it would punish the consumer, not the contractor that didn't follow the rules, which seems to be a complete abomination of any good contracting law, and is of marginal legality, if any.
Absolutely.
I wanted to just very quickly, because I want to get to your questions.
Igor, would you be able to drop all those in the link to the bills that you were talking about, so everyone knows and they can hit up their representative and put pressure on them?
Yes, and in fact, Jennifer Tanner is working on a letter on one of these bills. So I know she's on the Zoom. If she's might be so kind as to provide her contact info in the chat, we might be able to get a few more signatures. So I wanted to run through some other accomplishments and successes. One, starting with the Diablo Canyon situation, and I am sorry that we were not able to stop Diablo, but we were able to at least get a solar tax out of Diablo. This is the, we basically kicked up a shitstorm in the course of 24 hours. Assembly members and state senators reported getting 600 plus calls to their offices in opposition to this bill, because hidden away in it, someone in the governor's office, we're not sure if it was the governor himself, it was definitely someone though in the governor's office who took the utilities language, most likely, we can only conjecture, and after weeks of warning them, please don't tax solar through this vehicle, overreached and did it anyway. And so we were basically on the brink of stopping this bill. And as a result, because they introduced it 72 hours before the deadline to get bills out of the legislature on the floor, and so there was no way to amend the solar tax out of it, this letter to the congressional journal or the legislative journal needed to be sent. And it says, the legislation provides that the rate component established in the bill is applied to a customer's gross consumption of electricity. As there is no existing definition of gross consumption in the Public Utilities Code, we clarify that gross consumption is intended to mean each customer's total amount of electricity accessed from the grid. This is very helpful. To be clear, we're not out of the woods, but this helps us a really good leg to stand on before the CPUC dares try to introduce a solar tax to another vehicle, which is what they have been trying to do for over a year now. I also just some non-solar bills that were very important and are moving on to the governor's desk. I'm not going to, these are Sierra Club priority bills, and if you want to see the full 7 pages of them, I will drop the link in the chat, but I just wanted to highlight some particularly important one. We got setbacks after years of setbacks to every attempt to get 3,200-foot setbacks between oil and gas wells and residential with sensitive receptors. The governor weighed in support. And it, like, you know, I want to give credit where credit is due. It was thanks to the governor that this bill suddenly passed the assembly with, I think, 1 vote to spare. And then in the state Senate was teetering at 18 votes for a while and needed 21. And suddenly with some finger twisting going on, got to 25 votes. So this is moving to the governor's desk. And wow, we actually get to join bastions of progressivism like Texas and Arkansas and Alaska and Colorado in passing all, like, I don't know about Arkansas, but all the other states have actually passed a setback bill in some form. So California was a straggler, and now this is an opportunity to correct that record. Of course, I was joking about bastions of progressive values. So we should be at least as good as Texas on this issue. I wanted to mention some bad bills that we need to try to stop. There is a bill that was presented by a Republican, Patterson, that exempts rooftop solar in new buildings as a requirement after natural disasters. So PG&E causes a fire, the house burns down. the rebuilding of that house does not need to involve rooftop solar. I don't know in what parallel universe that makes sense, but that is moving to the governor's desk, and we need to try to get a veto, along with propping up biomass incinerators without providing any public benefit. And of course, this is the stuff that particularly negatively impacts frontline communities. But here are some good things that are also moving to the governor's desk. There's a bill by Ash Kaura over in Silicon Valley, putting a vehicle behind setting aside 30% of lands and coastal waters to conservation by 2030, as well as a bill by Ben Allen down south, financing sea level rise resiliency, a bill by Skinner in support of requiring zero emission public vehicles and putting criteria on that. Youth transit passes, a bill by Holden, or carried by Holden. It was written by it was really written by the youth, actually, and he took this bill and ran with it. And that's very exciting. A hard-fought, good Friedman bill that remains a good Friedman bill that aligns transportation programs with climate goals was very difficult to move forward, but is moving forward. Water is life. All we have to see is the news coming out of Jackson, Mississippi, to know that. There's a excellent Leave Us bill ensuring environmental justice and water policy that's moving forward, as well as a bill by Dodd, who generally has not been a friend of rooftop solar, is more of a friend to utilities, but actually did do something good. This is a water ratepayer assistance program that's moving to the governor's desk. There's a bill by Ting reducing PFAS exposure, as well as a bill by Bauer-Cahan addressing pesticide use. And then there are some other important bills. And we were able to, unfortunately, we supported some bills that came devastatingly close, heartbreakingly close to being signed, like the near-term climate ambition bill by Quirk, and this was his last bill in the legislature. He is leaving the legislature after this, got to 40 votes and could not get to 41. And the same thing happened with Wiener bill to ensure Climate Corporate Accountability Act. Needed 21 votes in the Senate, got 20. So there were some devastatingly close calls, but also there were some bad PG&E written bills like utility tree removal that, thanks to the work of Jennifer Tanner and many of you, we were also able to stop. So I'm going to stop here and see if there are any questions and reshare the links.
Thank you so much, Igor. You rock as usual. It looks like Dorothy has a question. Go ahead, Dorothy.
I was just gonna say, am I incorrect? But I believe that the setback rule, which is a nice rule, only applies to new oil wells and fracking setups. So since we shouldn't be even having any new oil wells or fracking setups, it's kind of
a little wacky,
little discouraging to have it happen now. And I just want to point out for people who don't know that if PG&E was a person, they would be serving a life sentence for murder, because they've killed so many people and they continue to kill people, and they continue to want to kill more people.
Yep. And let me point out too, Edison actually took the initiative. Well, I think they were forced into it. They've actually covered their wires as a preventative measure. But why isn't PG&E doing that? They would rather
because they're murderers.
Yeah,
and they were hoping they could get this tree bill, and then Southern California might have decided, well, why are we being idiots? We don't have to cover our wires. We can just start cutting people's trees down too. Exactly.
And why have these passed? Because of people like Igor and RL and people calling and demanding. People, these companies, these corporations will not yield unless we keep pressuring them. That is the only thing that's ever worked throughout history. We have a lot of dark money going up against us, but we have to keep in mind that public pressure works. it's the long game. It's very exhausting. I can ask Igor and I can ask RL. I know they're tired all the time because it's a constant battle. But
Jennifer
that's
couldn't
what
get
it
on
takes.
here because she's exhausted. She got COVID
Yeah.
and she worked through COVID and she has
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you guys are rock stars, but that's what it takes. We're in it for the long haul. You know, it's not a short game, it's a long game. Harvey, go ahead.
Real quickly, I think it's important we understand how much of the grid now is dependent on independently owned batteries. Batteries have become a major part of the grid and of the backup. And there does seem to be a recent moment where independently owned, basement batteries that are coming with solar systems actually kept the grid up. And we need to look at that. We also need to look at, we had 70,000 people in the solar industry, but most of them are not unionized. And this really hurts us politically. There has to be a major effort. And I know the FFL has not been into it. They put the 1,500 jobs at Diablo before the 70,000 in solar because the 70,000 aren't unionized.
Yep.
And in the coming months, we have to make sure we do that. And finally, we need to know, Igor, and somebody has to come up with the numbers, how many solar panels and how much solar capacity and how much battery backup could we install with the $1.4 billion that they want to give to keep Diablo going.
Exactly.
Those are important numbers that we need to know.
Once
Yeah.
again, misplaced
Harvey,
priorities.
Those are great questions. We either have that data or are crunching that data. Last week I crunched data showing that it was rooftop solar and battery storage owners that were able to get us to avert having blackouts and
Right.
those euphemistically titled public safety power shutoff events.
We need to publicize that.
Yeah.
That needs to be known.
Yes.
So
And
if you'll send me that data, I'll help get it out. And please join our call tomorrow at 3 p.m. everybody to discuss this. Igor, I hope you'll come on.
Harvey, I'd be happy to. One more comment, and I am, I consider myself extremely pro-labor, always have been, I personally believe that everything that can be unionized should be unionized. There are some nuances that we should talk about, maybe not on this Zoom, but happy to do that. The reality is that PG&E and PG&E's union, on page 4 of their strategic agreement that they have signed, it says we're going to do everything we can to fight against competitive threats to the utility monopoly. So that's actually what is going on here. This is not a matter of making sure that there is a just and equitable transition as an oil or gas plant, oil refinery or gas plant gets shut down, and making sure that the folks working there have an opportunity to still be in middle-class careers. This is pure and simple 65,000 well-paying solar jobs, some of which are union and some of which are worker-owned cooperatives, and many of them are women-owned, BIPOC-owned, and or veteran-owned businesses that are on the line here.
They need to be organized and focused with us in this political movement. We need them.
Yeah, and that's why I am here. Well, that's why the California Solar and Storage Association is here. But I agree with you. And that's why you're all here as well. We like to be really clear, we would not be able to do this work without the massive amounts of support and calls that you have been able to generate time and time again whenever we ask you to do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. No news.
Thanks, Igor. Justin, you're up.
So Igor, thanks for all of your detailed work in all these things and for your personal connection. I was actually born the same year that you were, so I relate to a lot of what you're talking about in terms of a shifting world and all the crises that we're facing simultaneously. So I wanted to bring up, it's kind of a shame that Jose isn't still on the call, but so in Anaheim, near Disneyland. You know, a lot of people think of it as Fantasyland, but they're also actually very practical in a lot of ways. They have their own municipal utility that has broken the back of utilities like Southern California Edison. They can have their own connection rules for things like battery systems that you mentioned to replace the natural gas plants. Another place that's done that kind of thing is Gonzales, California, right in the Salinas Valley of the John Steinbeck fame, Grapes of Wrath, and so on and so forth, people coming out from the Dust Bowl. So I'm wondering, in all of what you've studied, Harvey mentioned, you know, calculating the costs, that $1.4 billion that they want for Diablo. What can we do for battery storage to supply rooftop solar by comparison? And then how can, as I said to RL, the Inflation Reduction Act money be applied to that as well?
Yeah, so just if you can recap your question, maybe I want to make sure I'm answering it the right question. Sorry, Justin, Justin is asking to be unmuted. Can someone unmute Justin, please?
I don't know who did it, but they unmuted me by must have unmuted
Okay,
me.
sorry, there's too many button pushings. So yes, a lot of customers have not only community choice aggregators, but we want to push for municipal utilities, specifically for those battery systems to replace the peaker plants. And so the $1.4 billion that's going to Diablo, couldn't we get even more money from the Inflation Reduction Act for renewables?
That's a great question. I'm actually not an expert on the IRA, except for one section of it, which deals with the 30% investment tax credit on solar, including distributed solar. That might be a good question for RL if she's still on, but I will say that absolutely. Ironically, the whole pretext of Diablo now being extended is that there is a claim that there is a 40% reduction from goals in the level of renewables that have happened, notwithstanding the fact that Diablo is actually the most expensive way to do carbon-free energy, way more expensive than renewables, whether it's solar, any type of solar, and wind or geothermal. What's ironic about that, of course, when the solar tax language was in there, but even now, there's an opportunity cost. If you're investing all this money to prop up something that is a figment of the 20th century, at the cost of doing something that is democratized, renewable, and a much newer technology that is less expensive to implement, then it's a self-defeating prophecy. You're never going to get to your renewable goal if you continue to do that.
Excellent. Jeffrey.
I got four real quick. A fourth one because of what you just recently said. Real quick. For one thing, I think you should join the organization. I think you should join the organization called Ecocide, Stop Ecocide International, because I think they'd be helpful in this kind of. They're working on making environment a crime against the environment.
Okay.
You know, or the law.
Jeffrey. Yeah, go ahead and put that in the chat.
Oh,
thank you.
But can I just say this real quick?
Yeah, just make it quickly though, because we're running out of time.
I know if Diablo blows, we all know whose heads we're going to put on pikes,
Yeah,
or on a plate, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah, do you agree with me? Do you agree with me?
Okay, let's go. All right.
Yes.
Harry, you're up next. Harry Tischler. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm on. I'm all for solar panel power, I should say, and I am against oil. I'm not too thrilled with nuclear as well. But when you come down to it, you got to remember a couple of things. You know, a lot of you people live in houses. A lot of people don't live in houses. They live in apartments that can't provide enough solar panels or power, even with batteries, to provide the necessary power. And until they solve that problem, until they produce enough external solar and wind power to be able to feed those apartments, I'd much rather have the backup of the nuclear than the oil.
Yeah, and Harry, we can, you know, this is an important question that requires a nuanced response, which we probably don't have the time for in this setting. But what I will say is that increasingly, and again, those counties that I listed off earlier, they're the leaders in it. So San Bernardino, Riverside, LA, and a couple of others, particularly in the Central Valley and Inland Empire, are leading on virtual net energy metering and other technologies that are the way that apartment dwellers, multifamily apartment dwellers like myself, are able to realize utility saving or cost savings on their utility bills from solar. There's a really important program called Solar on Multifamily Affordable Housing. It's in order to apply for it, you have to be in a disadvantaged community or have to have up to or at least 60% of the residents in the building earning, I think I botched that actually, at least 80% of the residents need to earn average area median income of 60% or below. And we were able to stop, with all your help, a sham PG&E written bill, which would have provided basically a rate basing structure that would have competed with actual bills that save apartment dwellers money to the tune of $60 a month. There is a community solar bill that is now on the governor's desk. The devil is going to be in the details on that bill. But if the CPUC does a program that is well thought out, this is another opportunity to ensure that solar energy is something that can benefit everyone, not just hedonically, like we already know. There are studies out there that show it benefits all ratepayers when some Californians are able to put solar on roofs, but this is going to ensure that all of us, and I mean truly all of us, can have a piece of energy ownership for ourselves, not PG&E. You are on mute. You're speaking.
Hey, Roseanne, go right ahead.
Hi, I have a question. I am all for transitioning investor-owned utilities to municipal utilities so that we can actually control them as the public. My question is, obviously, a lot of these big companies like PG&E have incurred a lot of liability in terms of the damage they've caused and the lives that they've lost, and as well as all the deferred maintenance that they haven't done. So I'm wondering how we would effectively and cost effectively make that transition without making taxpayers pay for all those liabilities. Thank you.
Yeah, that's that is the $1.4 billion question. Already, well, that's actually the $9 billion question. So did you know that all of us, like all ratepayers, in 2021 alone, paid $9 billion to PG&E with 5 billion of it being for fire mitigation. So basically for us, the ratepayers, to have to clean up messes of the utilities' own making. And that's just PG&E in my territory. So now that's not enough money for them to feed their profit motive. So they're going after rooftop solar specifically through non-bypassable charges. But already there are non-bypassable charges that show up on your utility bills, whether you own solar or not. And there are more non-bypassable charges being proposed. So we absolutely need to be vigilant. We need to call that out. And that behavior needs to stop. The CPUC has good people working for that organization. I work with many of them. So this is not a criticism of the people at the CPUC so much as it's become an extremely captured organization. They're captured by the very utilities that they're charged with regulating. How does that happen? The sheer billions and billions of dollars of power and influence that utilities and those the utilities hide behind have, and the way that they've been able to completely twist around the concept of equity when they're the reason that a lot of these things that we have been fighting for, even around solar access for multifamily tenants or solar access in disadvantaged communities, they have been the ones to stop that time and time again. So we need to be vigilant. We need to keep up the fight. And there are organizations working on utility justice that you can join. I will put my email in the chat if you would are interested in getting connected with any of them.
Thank you, Igor. Yes, I was just going to say, put that in the chat. And along with the link for Solar Alliance. He is super involved. I always forget his name. Remind me.
Oh, Dave Rosenfeld?
Yes, yes, Dave Rosenfeld. He's amazing. He is a super advocate as well. And he will give you updates as to when CPUC meetings are coming up. We were actually on, I think Igor was on this call a couple of months ago. We were on over 7-hour call. They had over 400 people calling in to make a public comment. And that's exactly what I was saying earlier. That's what it takes, keeping the pressure on these people, because if you don't hold them to account, they will sneak this stuff in. So it's super important. Rose, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. So are you saying that we are already paying all of those costs, or would there be additional costs if we if it became a municipally owned model?
Yes, we are paying those costs now. The utilities pressured, I'm in a community choice area.
So am I.
So are you. We are being charged through the nose in something called the price, or I'm going to, it's the PCIA, which is, the way they get us are these really complicated terms that no one understands, and all the different line items on bills. The PCIA is also called the Power Charge Indifference Adjustment. Well, what the heck does that mean? That means your and my utility bills and the CCA's ability to deliver renewable energy to us is even harder because it costs more, because we have the audacity to leave a PG&E or other utility territory. If you're not in, like, so regardless of whether you're in being served directly by an investor-owned utility like PG&E, SoCal Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, or you are in a municipal utility, or you are in CCA, right now, the CPUC has devised multiple ways to charge things through the roof so that we are paying for it, even if we are not the ones, like we're actually the saviors of the grid, not the other way around, but somehow we're being made out to be the villains, claiming that we're using more power on the grid than we're actually using. And then we're being asked to pay more and more for that. The cost of generation and transmission have gone up in some territories as much as 40% over the last 2 years. And what is being on the table are proposals to increase non-bypassable charges even more. So we are focused like a laser right now on stopping a solar tax, but you should know that there are various worthwhile fights to get involved in about stopping all unfair charges on the ratepayers often who don't generate those things that we're being paid for, and then have the really hard decision to make between choosing to pay the mortgage or choosing to pay the rent and choosing to pay their utility bill.
Absolutely, and that should never be the case, right? In this country. That's why we have to turn it around. All right, any more questions from anyone? I wanted to thank our panel, esteemed panel, Igor, RL, Harvey. I'm missing someone, Trini, I think he's gone. You guys are awesome, and I admire you so much, the work that you do and are still doing. It's so important, and anyone that has questions, please reach out. I think they have shared their emails in the chat. If someone cannot save the chat, I have saved it. So you can email me and I'll put my email in the chat and I can email that off to you if you so desire. If you're on like a tablet or something, I know that it's hard to save the chat from that. So go ahead and make note of that. And any other questions before we go? Jeffrey, did you want to go ahead and ask a question?
Yes. When will this recording be available to us, whoever's
Oh,
recording this Zoom meeting?
Good question. Mike Fowler will have that probably within the next few days, right, Mike?
Actually, it will probably be available tomorrow sometime. And what you need to do is go to YouTube, go into the YouTube search and search for PDA-CA, PDA-CA channel. You'll get a big, what I call a green P. It's a green circle with a P in it. And subscribe and then look for this meeting. And you'll find a lot of other interesting meetings also.
Sounds really good. Excuse me for my cough. Let's take Harry, wrap this up. Harry. We can go to Ilka since Harry's not there. Oh, there he is.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. What did you
I
have?
sent the message, but that didn't come out either. I just simply said it would be nice not to be cut off when you don't like what I'm saying.
Harry, we do have time limits, so that's why we have to do that. So I apologize. Ilka, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I actually wanted to thank Dorothy and Danette and all the speakers. That was amazing. Igor, as usual, inspiration. It would be nice to be able to pay into like a public, now the term, the solar, so I could have a piece of it too, and I think it's great to talk about these ideas. So thank you very much, ladies. You guys did awesome, and all the speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Harvey, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
Igor and the other speakers, great to see you. Igor, please come on, especially if we need some of the numbers that you've put out on tomorrow's Zoom, if you will. Please join us. Everyone else, join us 3 o'clock East Pacific time tomorrow at the we'll have Jim Hightower is at 2 o'clock.
Oh, got it.
At 3 o'clock is our energy panel, which will
the regularly scheduled program will be shoved to 3. Okay, got it.
So no nukes, everybody, and we do not have to throw in the towel on Diablo. Nope. There are plenty of places to stop this, especially if we save rooftop solar, because we'll eventually put them out of business.
Yes.
If we keep with rooftop. Thank you very much.
Got to keep pushing. That's what it takes, and there's still hope if you're alive, right? Got to keep doing it.
We would hope so.
All right. Thank you so much. Everyone stay cool. It's still hot out there. And take care.
No nukes.
No nukes. Go green energy. Go Green New Deal.